And other governors are demanding safety of citizens. The Politics live on Channels Television. I am Sean Wakimale right here in Abuja. It's quite interesting that with all of the threats and some kind of subtle pressure on Nigeria, it does look like President Donald Trump today acknowledged the presence of the First Lady of Nigeria, Oluremi Tinubu, publicly during the 74th National Prayer Conference in the United States, recognizing her role as a pastor in one of Nigeria's largest Christian congregations. President Trump, while addressing participants at a faith-based gathering, made reference to Mrs. Tinubu's pastoral background and leadership within the church, drawing applause from the audience. The acknowledgement places the Nigerian First Lady among prominent global faith leaders present at a conference which brings together political figures, clergy, and policymakers for prayers and reflections on leadership, governance, and national values. Take a listen to Donald Trump here.
We're honored to be joined today by the First Lady of Nigeria, who also happens to serve as a Christian pastor at the largest church in Nigeria, a very respected woman. First Lady, please, where are you? Thank you very much. It's a great honor. Thank you very much. Very respected person, too. Thank you.
Let's tell you about the situation in Kwara State, where a lot of attention has been taken there. First, let me tell you that the president has received the Kwara State governor. This comes after the president has ordered that special troops should be deployed to the state. We understand that efforts are now in the works between the federal government, led by President Tinubu, and the Kwara State governor, in how to arrest the situation and bring the perpetrators to book. But Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun has ordered the immediate deployment of tactical and intelligence assets to Kayama local government area of Kwara State following a violent attack that claimed several lives on Tuesday. There's a statement released by the Nigerian Police Force where the first PRO, Benjamin Udayi, is saying that the IG has described the incident as deeply painful and tragic, while assuring that the perpetrators will be apprehended. The statement explains that the Nigerian Police Force strongly condemns the violent attack that occurred on Tuesday in Kayama local government area of Kwara State, which has sadly resulted in the confirmed death of 75 persons. The statement adds that while the IGP extend his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims as well as to the government and the people of Kwara State, he assures the public that the police remains steadfast in his responsibility to protect lives and properties. The Kwara State governor has gone to the spot where that attack has happened in Kayama local government area. Devastating has been described when he met leaders in Kayama local government, the LG leader, the local government chairman in Kayama, and some of the community traditional rulers in the state. Let me allow you to listen to how the governor described that incident.
Over the deaths of 75 of the subjects in the world. I'd like to turn off the troops. The emirate is versatile, and from the information I've been getting, this village refused to succumb to a perverted form of Islamic doctrine. They are lying under the emirate, abiding by the Islamic faith.
Kwara State governor, when he paid a condolence visit and visited the spot of the incident, where northern governors are now asking for decisive action from the federal government to tackle what has become a very sad scenario of these bandits and the attacks that has happened in several states in the northern region of the country. They're asking for safety of citizens and for the federal government and security agencies to be more proactive in defending the interest of the Nigerian people. Tonight, I'll be bringing you up close with the decision of some minority lawmakers. They disagreed with the position of the Senate when they debated the Electoral Amendment Bill. They said the position of the Senate has been published yesterday is totally against what they decided at their debate in plenary. And we'll be hearing from them how impactful or the consequences or the implications of their debate on our next election and the future elections. But let me serve you first your political roundup stories.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has approved the registration of 2 new political parties following the conclusion of a statutory assessment process and compliance with a court order. Speaking at the consultative meeting, INEC Chairman Professor Joash Amupiton, SAN, announced the registration of the 2 new political parties, Democratic Leadership Alliance (DLA) and Nigeria Democratic Congress (NDC). The 2 new parties now bring the number of registered political parties to 21. According to Professor Amupiton, the DLA emerged successful following a rigorous verification process, while the NDC was registered in compliance with the Federal High Court order. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, led by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, alongside his National Chairman, Abdurrahman Mohammed, and National Secretary, Samuel Anyanwu, attended the meeting, while the Senator Nenadi Usman-led Labour Party attended with the National Secretary, Senator Darlington Nwokocha. The Northern States Governors Forum, NSGF, has condemned the gruesome killings in parts of Kwara, Katsina, and Benue states, describing them as barbaric, senseless, and a direct assault on the collective conscience of the nation. Under the chairmanship of Governor Inuwa Yahaya, the forum, comprising of 19 governors of the North, is demanding decisive security solutions to end the relentless targeting of defenseless citizens, including women, children, and the elderly, while commending the governors of Kwara, Benue, and Katsina states for their resilience in the face of scathing security challenges. Governor Yahaya reassures Nigerians of the forum's commitment to working with all security agencies and all local stakeholders to foster intelligence-led community policing and enduring socioeconomic solutions. The All Progressives Congress in Taraba State has denied any division within the party, insisting that all aggrieved members who hindered President Bola Tinubu's 2023 presidential campaign in Taraba State have now come under one platform for peace and progress of the party. The party is also denying giving the governor any condition before joining the party last Saturday, adjudging his decision as one that was best for the state, noting that being in isolation would not assist the state government.
Just about this time yesterday, we were reporting to you the outcome of the Senate debate on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which those who have criticized the Senate for the delay, which they say will hinder or affect the 2027 elections in one way or the other. Yesterday, the Senate passed through third reading the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. That has generated a lot of controversy. And so today, Senator Eyinaya Abaribe led some of his colleagues to insist that the Senate approve the electronic transmission of election results in real time, dismissing media reports suggesting otherwise and saying his integrity is at stake over the issue. We're speaking today at the media briefing at the National Assembly, accompanied by 13 senators. Senator Abaribe asserted that the Senate did not pass a transfer of result as contained in the 2022 Electoral Act, but rather approved the electronic transmission of result, stressing that the distinction is deliberate and important. Take a listen to him.
Put the records straight. Yesterday, the Senate did not, I repeat, did not pass transfer of results, which was in the 2022 Act. What we passed and which the Senate President himself, when he was doing a clarification sitting on his chair, is transmission of results. Transmit, not transfer. What is in 2022 is transfer. And we don't want a law that is vague. We don't want a law that will be misinterpreted by anybody. We want a law that is clear, concise, and can be interpreted by all, and that is unambiguous. So it is electronically.
All right, you heard Senator Abaribe. A lot of intrigues are being generated in that, but let me bring you right in the front seat of this conversation. I'm being joined by one of those who had the debate, who went to the executive session, they emerged from it, passed it through third reading. Now, what is next in the procedural and the legislative process of all of this is an alignment with the House of Reps. It does look like the House of Reps, that those who are criticizing the Senate is less progressive than their colleagues in the Green Chamber, because their own amendment is a bit more distinct and more progressive in nature. Let's find out from member of the Red Chamber of the National Assembly. Senator Victor Ume is one of the minority lawmakers who has strongly made their position known in this. Is live for us here in our studio. Thanks so much, Senator, for joining us.
Thank you, Shem, for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
Yeah. I'm very sure that if that has been passed earlier in the day, the sound and the noise of crucify him to you and your colleagues from a lot of Nigerians was so resounding that if they had met any one of you on the street of Nigeria yesterday night, maybe some of Nigerians would have held you by the cloth. But it provoke a lot of people who think that the amendment to the electoral law of 2026 will be dramatically different based on our experience of 2023 election, especially the clause 63 of the Electoral Act 2022. But Senator, where did it change? Who changed it? What happened? Because the position here is that what you debated on the floor is different from what has been published.
Well, thank you, Shane. I have to remind you that lawmaking is not an event. It takes a process to make a law. And the National Assembly knows clearly that for you to make a law, you have to subject it to some processes. The bill will have to come, go through first reading, second reading, then go through public hearing and other consultative actions before you come back for debate and passage. With the level of outcry that came out yesterday and up to today, Nigerians are very angry because of how it finished yesterday. It goes to show that what they had was not what they were expecting. And laws are made to either provide for orderliness or to solve a problem. You don't make a law in vain because you want to make law. Laws are targeted at solving certain problems. You know that the last election we had here in Nigeria, general election in 2023, was highly disputed. And Nigerians were waiting for another opportunity to have an election that will be seamless, that will be the result to be accepted by a majority of Nigerians. And when the Electoral Act amendment was introduced, the Senate did not take it just like an ordinary thing. The Senate had to set up the committee. But I also want to point out that Nigeria runs a bicameral legislature. We have the House of Representatives, we have the Senate. And both chambers have committees on electoral matters. So in order to approach this very important process, the House of Rep Electoral Committee and the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters had to organize a joint session and retreat and brought major stakeholders. Independent National Electoral Commission was there. National chairmen of political parties were there. Legal luminaries were there. And some judges were also there to help to brainstorm on what will be an acceptable and amendments that will help to cure the problems we have in our electoral system. Civil society organizations were there in their numbers. So it was not something that was just started and finished yesterday. They started this thing since over a year ago, and they met, received suggestions from the public, and then the committee embarked on 6 zonal public hearings, the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. The joint committee went round and received memoranda and opinions of Nigerians on what they desire to be done. And then when they finished, they compiled their reports and submitted to both chambers after the public hearings. The draft Electoral Act Amendment Bill was brought to the Senate and also brought to the House of Representatives. Each chamber went to do their work on the report. But it is good to say that in all these retreats, all the zonal public hearings, all the consultations and joint sessions they had, one issue received unanimous approval and demand from the public, and that is to say, to amend Section 60 of the Electoral Act of 2022 as it affects transmission of results. It became a vexed issue because, one, you recall that after the presidential election, the matter went to the Supreme Court, from Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. And arguments were taken on the uploaded results to the IRF portal electronically, And the other side argued against that the electronic transmission of results was not in the Electoral Act. And the Supreme Court relied on that to discountenance all the evidence adduced that had to do with electronic transmission of results, but both IRF portal and all that. So it is based on this that all the stakeholders decided that this amendment will provide for electronic transmission of results, so that where there is dispute again, the court will not say that it is unknown to law. That's why there was unanimity of agreement that electronic transmission of results must be put there. Yeah. So when it now came back home to the National Assembly, for us in the Senate, because the House of Reps had finished their own processes, passed their Electoral Act Amendment Bill, reflecting all the submissions they got from their joint sessions and joint public hearings across Nigeria, and provided for electronic transmission of election results, well embedded, and passed it, among other things, It's just because this one is the controversial issue. That's why I'm dwelling on it. There were a lot of other things they provided for. And then, to our own side, to do it, the Senate President, in his wisdom, decided to set up an ad hoc committee of the Senate to go and look at the report presented to us by the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters. And that committee was made up of 8 persons, 8 senators, 6 members of the APC senators, and the 2 from the other side. They were given time to go and look at it and bring back their report to the Senate. The idea, from what the Senate President reasoned, was to prepare a ground for easy coming together by the Senate in considering the report of the Electoral Committee, So that committee was headed by a senior advocate of Nigeria, a senator, distinguished Senator Adebi Abominere. And of course, they brought their report to the Senate. It was debated exhaustively because their committee returned the electronic transmission of results in what they brought back to the Senate.
So at what point did that change?
I'm coming. This is the explanation I'm giving you. So we now came back to consider those things in the closed session, where everything in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill was taken. Everything was taken.
All the amendment clauses?
All the amendment clauses were taken, agreed to, or rejected in that closed session. Senators overwhelmingly approved the transmission of results electronically. So it was common ground. Everybody agreed. Even the ad hoc committee set up by the Senate agreed to it. And yesterday, when we came to the plenary, everybody was happy that all the issues have been dealt with.
And resolved.
They've been resolved with generality of the senators agreeing to this major amendment. Because everybody in Nigeria is looking forward to having a credible, free and fair, no controversial election. That is the aspiration of Nigerians and every one of us. So when the clause-by-clause consideration came again in plenary, many people were not even listening again because all issues have been agreed to. And we were passing everything the way
the committee of the whole.
The committee of whole, everything we agreed to, Then from what we later saw, that there was a communication in front of the table between two persons that wants to do this one. People were not even looking because we were passing everything. And eventually, I understand that somebody said they want to expunge the word transmission for this, and somebody seconded. It was not debated. If such a major alteration to what we have been generally agreed to were to come up, it will be thrown up open again. So we didn't debate anything like that, yes.
Was there, and I will read to Nigerians, maybe they will understand.
Yes.
What was agreed upon at the executive session, section 60, sub 3, and I want to read it out.
Yes.
Is this what was agreed? That the commission, this is the amendment, that the commission shall electronically transmit the result from each polling unit to the IREV portal in real time, and such transmission shall be done simultaneously with the physical collation of results. Is that what was agreed upon?
What was agreed upon was that the results, polling unit results, will be transmitted electronically to the IREV portal
in real time. Physically, alongside simultaneously with the physical.
No, it's not there.
Okay.
I can read it for you.
This is the house version that I read to you.
Okay, no, it's not in our version.
So
physically, alongside physically, it wasn't in our version.
But what I was
in real time. So during the executive session, the only argument someone made was that on real time should be removed because of maybe there might be something that would delay it.
Network issue.
Yeah. So it was only on real time that was removed. Expunged. And it was passed like that, agreed to by everybody. So coming back to where I was before you brought that question, the issue of whether the results will be transmitted electronically was not an issue of any decide said he wants to expunge the transmission, and then somebody seconded, and the gavel went. There was no debate on it. Because if they allow debate on it, it will take us back to the executive session, and to all the arguments we have made on the matter and resolved them, both by the ad hoc committee. So nobody was expecting that such a thing ever happened.
So it was sort of like what you agreed in the executive session and what the gavel dropped on were two different things.
It appears so, because that's what they're trying to make us understand. Yes.
What we saw, what was published, was that it was agreed that you passed transfer of results. That was one of the things that was and that you did not agree on e-transmission or electronic transmission.
No, it's not true. We agreed on electronic transmission. Let me even tell you, if going by that report, that somebody said that he wants to expunge the word transmission and replace it with transfer, if you put it in that proposed amendment, it will not mean anything. You cannot put a transfer or electronic transmission because there are other words that follow it. Will you transfer to the IRF portal? If you expunge transmission and put transfer there, how do you transfer to portal? So if it's not done electronically.
For a lot of Nigerians who are watching tonight, some of you have said, especially the minority senator, to say, we disagree on what was passed through the third hearing on this bill. Because legally speaking, what has been passed will now go into a concurrence.
There will be a harmonization, not concurrence yet.
Harmonization
let me even tell you where we stopped yesterday. Harmonization committee was set up that will now meet with the House of Reps Harmonization committee, because there are places who passed different things. And now that the House of Reps passed electronic transmission of results, among other places, they passed all three modes of... they passed it. But in our own case, the Senate dropped indirect and passed direct and consensus. So all these things go back to...
and you also agree on the timing reduction of 180
for notice to election, 360 days down to 180.
Does this satisfy the timing that you passed? Does this satisfy that? Because the argument of Nigerians majorly is that, look, we need to finalize election matter before swearing in. Yes. Nobody should be sworn in. Then after 6 months, we now discover that there's a change. Anybody that is going to face litigation, face it before you're swearing in. Did your agreement or the final agreement at that sitting yesterday satisfy that too?
No. You see, the timelines that we had, 360 for notice of election, it was cut down to 180. Then time to publish a list of candidates. In the previous act, it was 150 days to the date of election. It was brought down to 60 days, you know. So all these things are the things that you go and argue over again and see whether they make sense in the light of what both chambers have passed.
Senator, it does, I mean, what some of you and your colleagues in the Senate minority are saying is that we are not part of this. Sure, this is not.
No, you don't introduce a surprise in the middle of a process. This thing has been agreed to by everybody. I mean, and it is in accord with the expectation of Nigerian people. There is no way we can have an election that was conducted and the results were made available. Then, along the line, there was a complaint of a glitch in the presidential election, and everything went to court. And the court said they will not make use of the electronic transmission of results because it was unknown to the Electoral Act.
Truly, it was.
It was unknown.
Yeah.
So that is why lawmaking is ingenious. You do that, nobody opposed it. And as it has happened, I want to tell you that if it was not against the public interest, the level of outcry it has generated wouldn't have been so. Because we, the senators, are under e-transmission of results. It's not a fair presentation. Because majority of the senators, both APC and all parties, agreed to this inclusion. Electronic transmission of results. It doesn't hurt anybody.
How do we fix this now? Because there seems to be that some people want it the way it used to be. And if there are major issues to say, whatever happened, go to court. These amendments should have fixed go to court scenario, narrative. It will also fix that INEC will not be able to say there is election, there is glitches in the transmission. All of these are... Now that it has gotten to this point, some come out to say, of it. How do we fix it?
Well, the way to fix it is for us to go to what the people agreed. The Nigerian people agreed and demanded for electronic transmission of results. Law is not made by the National Assembly alone. It's also made carrying the citizens along. That is why no law can be passed in Nigeria without subjecting it to public hearing. The essence of public hearing is to bring the public interest in the matter. It will be debated exhaustively so that when you are passing a law, you're passing a law that is in tandem with the aspirations of the Nigerian people.
And the interests of
the country. So if you go and do otherwise, you generate the tension what is playing out has generated now. So I think that all hopes are not lost yet, because the issue of going back to 2022 Electoral Act that talked about transfer, it was not the case when the senators discussed it exhaustively. You know, it was rejected. They said electronic transmission, all divides. So you cannot come now and do it, maybe, I don't know the word that would be appropriate, but put it in a manner that the senators will be taken unawares. And it was not debated, because we had ample time to debate this thing during closed session. And everybody aired his view, and over 85% of the senators agreed to electronic transmission of results. So now, we didn't finish yesterday. That is why this is the way God works. We didn't come back to approve and adopt the votes and proceedings of yesterday before proceeding to, before adjourning and handing the matter over to conference committee. You know, it is the approved votes and proceedings that will be taken to the committee for harmonization. So we have not finished. And I believe that by the time we come back to approve that vote and proceedings, because that day the question will be put: is this a true reflection of what we did yesterday? You see how the senators will react.
We'll be waiting for that. But thank you so much indeed for you and your colleagues coming out. I appreciate Senator.
No,
we'll be monitoring closely.
We are for the Nigerian people. You see, I'm not here to make. Nobody should make a law that will be self-serving. We should be making laws that will correct problems in Nigeria and put this country on a very strong standing. For us to have anything that will be credible.
Thank you so much.
On the issue of election, it's a very sensitive one.
Very, very.
It's not something anybody can do hide and seek. We must agree to it. And Nigerians have called us all manners of names. We have to take the insult because we have disappointed them from the news they got. But I want to say that those of us who said that was not what we agreed to, both in closed session and by the Electoral Committee, and by the ad hoc committee set up to review the same thing, it cannot just change. So, yes, it cannot just change.
Thank you so much. Senator Victor Ume, thank you so much indeed for your time. We'll be monitoring closely and hoping that sometimes we will get you back as this progress. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Senator Victor Ume.
Don't monitor me, monitor the Senate.
No, I'm talking about what is going on. You and the proceedings there, you and your colleagues. Thanks so much indeed. I appreciate it.
Thank you very
much. You know what they call boju boju? When we were younger, that's what the kind of game we play. You close your eyes with clothes and you'll be running around the room trying to look for what is not lost. It looks like it is the boju boju tendency that is emerging in the amendment to the Electoral Act. Whether this boju boju will succeed or not, Up next on the program.
For the good of Nigeria.
Absolutely. There won't be boju boju.
To do what is right.
All right.
What is right does not hurt anybody.
Absolutely.
Yes, so
We're going to break, everyone. But when we return, I'll be joined by one of the most experienced constitutional lawyer in the land. He's participated in all of the 5th alteration to the Nigerian Constitution and is in the know to all of how our electoral law has emerged to this point. It's Clement Nwanko, and his perspective is going to be very interesting. The legal angle, the constitutionality of what has been done, and the process of our election. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Join us again. Everyone for staying with us. My next guest brings not only experience, knowledge of what has gone on in modern time in terms of our laws. He's probably one of the most experienced person you will find around, legally speaking. Well, he's an elder statesman by age, but he's also one person that have gone through the nitty-gritty of this amendment since it started about a year ago. Clement Nwanko. He's a senior lawyer, constitutional lawyer, and he's a co-convener of the CSO Situation Room and the executive director of PLAC. Thanks so much, Mr. Nwanko, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Quick correction. I was convener for 10 years, and that was...
Well, we still see you as co-convener. Anyway, there's
ago.
no way you're going to. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
Let me begin. It was a very devastating news for a lot of Nigerians who thought that, and we were very much concerned, and for those of us who tried to distill the news for people to understand, there are 3 areas that are very crucial to the Nigerian people coming out of the 2023 elections. One was the mode of transmission of result as captured in Section 60, sub 3 of Section 60 of the Electoral Law, which suggests that there is no constitutionality in INEC or the obligation of INEC transmitting the result to the IRF portal, which was established by the Supreme Court in that judgment of the presidential election. That's on one hand. The other one is whether or not before swearing in, people should have concluded all litigation. That's what it was very critical. And on the other part is the timelines of election, which was also is a major issue for a lot of Nigerians. But in all of what we have monitored, it does look like everything was fine until yesterday. And I'd like to ask you, for someone who had monitored the process all through the public hearing and even helped to inform and put your knowledge of law and experience in constitutional amendment to bear on this, what did you agree on those 3 points I mentioned? What were the agreement prior to yesterday?
There was a common document, and my involvement with Electoral Act reform or even constitutional reform dates way back to 2010, when the first Electoral Act amendment took place. The 2010 Electoral Act were very much involved with that. The process with 2022 Electoral Act were very much involved with that. And what developed from all of that was the creation of the joint committees of the National Assembly on electoral matters. And that joint committee was able to meet and come up with a joint process of conversations and engagement. Meetings were organized jointly, retreats were organized jointly, public hearings were held jointly, zonal consultations were going on. So at every stage, every member of the committees, Senate and House, worked together. So the members of the committee knew exactly what the document was. The Senate...
Nobody was in the dark.
Nobody was in the dark.
And there was some
there was consensus that led to the final document.
Across board.
Now, the final document now, in line with legislative process, has to go to the 2 different chambers for voting. And that was where the problem began. The 2 houses, in their legislative agenda, promised reforms. Both the Senate legislative agenda and the House legislative agenda promised reforms on electoral and constitutional matters. The 2 houses had a common document. It went. The House, and the commitment also included that the amendments to the Electoral Act and even the Constitution was to happen before the end of 2025. The House pushed and succeeded in getting its own version, or the version agreed, passed before it went on the Christmas recess. The Senate delayed. And part of that delay included that the Senate kept pushing off debate, kept adjourning, kept just not being able to put it on the table. When it finally was pressured to do so, the Senate president said he wanted members to understand so that they can vote. So he set up an ad hoc committee to put things together. Now that ad hoc committee more or less retained the original document. The Senate had executive sessions. Those executive sessions, again, more or less retained everything. And we thought everything was okay, that when it came to voting, on the day of votes, it would just be that since there had been 2 executive sessions, which is again worrying, for a document that was a national document of such grave national importance.
Public interest.
And huge public interest. It was worrying to see the Senate
to commit it into executive
go
session.
Into executive session.
Executive session, by the way, for a lot of our viewers who are maybe alien to legislative procedures, is simple. That they have to close the door, send all the media out. It's just only the lawmakers in the room. That's simply what exactly. So when it goes into executive session, or when they announce executive session, it means that, excuse us, everyone, we want to be alone.
Yes, and that's worrying for a legislative process, because you have to be transparent. People elected you as a legislator. You didn't fight your way into that position. You were elected by people. You represent people. There's nothing that makes you superior to the ordinary Nigerian. You were elected. You are accountable to the people.
Actually, lawmakers are subservient. As long as you put your hands to say, vote for me to be your lawmaker, you are subjecting your rights and privileges to the interests of the people. So you are subservient to them. You're a servant of the Nigerian people. So
when
and at every point you have to be transparent.
When you beg people to vote you in, you must listen to them. And that's what is painful to a lot of us. You act as if you are the overlord. You're not listening to us citizens. Electoral Act is not the personal property of anybody. It's a national property. So senators, House members must vote the way their constituents have said, please vote. And everyone agreed from the experience of 2023 that you needed to reform certain things in order to make your elections legitimate and acceptable. Once a government is elected on the basis of illegitimacy and abuse of process, that dogs it throughout its tenure.
Yeah. Let's take it one after the other. One thing that really got a lot of Nigerians angry, and if there's anything that could, and I've heard now that there is a protest that are being planned on this matter. I've received news information as to planned protests, and they call it Occupy NAS. The last time I heard Occupy NAS was during the Bukola Saraki, when they were asking for open NAS. This time around, people are saying they are going to occupy the National Assembly because of what they describe as untoward behaviors of some of the senators, whom in that information they said they are unprogressive, self-serving lawmakers. That's how they describe it in there, because they say that those positions has been published yesterday are not the interest of the Nigerian people. First and foremost, the e-transmission of the result. And I'm particularly, not only because I'm a student of law also, and I have interest in our election, and I've done several years in monitoring our electoral process and see how it has grown. You will see the House version that has made public. And the subsection 3 of section 60 of the Electoral Act in the version, it says the commission shall electronically transmit. It was transfer that some people were, putting out there. Electronically transmit, that's one hand, the result from each polling unit to the IRF portal in real time. And such transmission, real time means immediately online. When you are posting it, people are seeing it at home. And such transmission shall be done simultaneously with the physical collation of results. Is that the consensus that was agreed upon, Mr. Nwankwo?
In the committee sessions, this was extensively debated. And those committee retreats and sessions had the two committee members from Senate and House, INEC, Judiciary, selected experts who came into the meeting. And this particular section was extensively debated. And that consensus was reached because it was felt that it was a major issue arising from the 2023 general elections. Whether it is the comments of observers, Nigerians, internationals, the media, citizens, this was a major issue.
And in the form in which, and I emphasize for any student of law that is listening to me tonight, we understand the implication of why I'm emphasizing all of those. If you have been following our election, or the judges that sit on our election, we understand why I'm emphasizing on these words. Electronic transmission, very critical. It means only one thing. Use the mode of not giving INEC
the country budgeted incredible amount of money. And I must say again, and I keep saying this, Nigeria's elections are one of the most expensive in the world. The procurement costs are incredible. Mm-hmm. The country spent incredible amount of money purchasing the beavers, and this Electoral Act talks about other technological device. They were purchased. Technology has even improved significantly since 2023. In 2023, this country didn't discuss AI, artificial intelligence. Today, it's a worldwide discussion. So in terms of technology, it's increased incredibly. So you can't budget such a huge amount of money
and not use it.
You have equipment that is modern, up to date with those features. The glitch of 2023 with the modern features shouldn't happen again. You can't spend that kind of money and shortchange Nigerians as to the use of the capacity of the machine that you have bought. So you can imagine why citizens are angry about this waste. And you can't say to Nigerians, we cannot make progress beyond what happened in 2023, because if the Senate issue is not resolved in favor of transmission real time, it would mean that the country...
And simultaneously with the physical.
Yes, of course, that's always there.
You know the reason why I'm saying that, Mr. Nwankwo.
Yeah, it's really to have a
lot of percentage. Yeah, no. So one of the things that some of us who have worked with the back end of the IREF to use for our reportage is that most of the element which has been transmitted, people will snap things that are not relevant to the election. And when voters and party agents see what you are transmitting, and that's why for me, as you are transmitting physically, you are transmitting electronically, is very, very important. It brings us on the issue of transparency.
And I think the question is really, how do we improve the integrity of our elections? The whole idea is that you reduce significantly the human element that manipulates election results. And people can see that their votes count. Now, democracy means that you can change the government as you will. And people can go and vote and express themselves. Where our democracy fails to deliver on people's ability to choose, it will mean, sadly, that the democracy is at an end. And I do hope that members of the National Assembly understand the deep implications of these particular provisions. But what worries me as well is that even if the National Assembly doesn't pass this, it's close to the next elections. The current Electoral Act, 2022 Electoral Act, gives INEC powers. And it was this same time in 2022 that INEC issued notice of elections. So we must ask the question, INEC, there is an existing act. Please, INEC, issue your notice of elections based on what is the Electoral Act that we have today, which is 360 days.
If you look at it, Mr. Nwankwo, are you worried? Because time and time again, it has now become a phenomenon in the National Assembly where people are now doubting what is agreed and what was passed. It happened with the tax law. Now it happened with the electoral law. Where is this gap? When Nigerians start distrusting and start needing to now look at the fine details, when debate is being made and passed and what has been published, what kind of scenario does it present?
It happened with the Electoral Act. It happened with the petroleum PIB. It's happened with quite a few bills. And I think it was a major issue even at the beginning of this Fourth Republic. I can't remember the particular incident where it appeared, and it was an accusation against the then Senate president. I think it was Evans Enwerem or somebody. And it became a major impeachable offense. So it is worrying to see that the integrity of our legislative process is being questioned. It is worrying, and I think for a lot of Nigerians, this is a major concern.
So you, as an activist and a lawyer, what you are asking Nigerians is to stand up and be watchers of our democracy, because if we are not careful, there are some people that will tip it over.
Well, we could lose it, but what I'm also saying is that the Independent National Electoral Commission should use our current Electoral Act and go ahead and announce give notice for elections in 2027. If INEC is to delay in doing this, then the question will arise as to what is INEC not doing right.
Or who is INEC working for?
And who? Well, it has to work for Nigerians.
That's the question. That's why we have to ask the question.
The current issue now is that INEC has an immediate responsibility to issue notice of elections with the current act that says this notice must be given no later than 360 days before a date for elections.
Thank you for your voice of reasoning, Mr. Clement Nwanko, a lawyer, a former convener, as they say, is still a present convener, because we see you as a leading voice within the civil society and the election development partners. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
But that's our show for today, everyone. You must be vigilant. If you are not vigilant, the democracy we hard fought for might slip off our fingers, and that's why all of you must be an active citizen. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Sean Akimale. God bless Nigeria.